Thank you all for coming to the March meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. Let's open the meeting. Present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Gleckman,
John Ferraro.
Anthony Antico.
Patty Fisher.
thank you all, and joining us at the table today for the conversation are,
Sandy Stachinski from HRS.
thank you Sandy,
And Tracy Belize.
thank you Tracy. I assume Lynn will be with us momentarily, but let's kick off here. Sandy, in advance, thank you for all of the effort here to put together what looks like a comprehensive draft copy of the compensation survey, as well as other miscellaneous information that ties maps to it. And unless there's any opening thought or question from the board, let's turn it right over to Sandy.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I just wanted to go over the methodology that we use for the report and in general some of the findings that we came up with. But we looked at gathering data from a number of communities in your specific area, and those communities are Boxford, Essex, Georgetown, Groveland, Hamilton, Ipswich, Merrimack, Newburyport, Rowley, Topsfield, Wenham, and West Newbury. So we gathered, we sent out custom surveys to all of these organizations, and we gathered salary data and also some benefits, general benefits information, and then we quantified it, based on the average, the 65th, the 75th percentile. And we want to ensure, we want to maintain that the ranges are consistent with the market and provide, an understanding of our proposal and ensure compliance also with pay equity and NEPA and that sort of thing. And it also, we use our rating system. We have a point factor rating system that we use, and that's sort of a separate document that we give to the town. And the number of positions, I believe they were 65 classified. And on page 10, you can see the classification plan goes from 12 to 22. And we stuck with your general structure of the min, mid, and max, which ties in nicely with any performance system that you have, or it just helps to give some flexibility to the departments to have ranges that way. If you go to pages 13 and 14 in the report, this is a nice summary because it shows you your current grade, and then the survey data, how it ties into the survey data, the position title, your current minimum and maximum, the number of data points that we got, the min and max average from the market, and the proposed. So we utilize the average to come up with our proposed ranges, which is what most communities are doing, as we're doing a number of these in other places. And and where there might be limited data, not to worry. I mean, we use our rating system, and we may use another position that's close to it in the occupational series for benchmark purposes. So the market data helps us to determine the parameters of the salary schedule, whereas the rating, and there's 14 factors for rating, supervision, education, training, complexity, problem solving, physical requirements, etc. So that helps us to determine the grouping and the classification on the classification plan. And we have in the report for you a summary definition of each factor on page 14. So it's physical environment, basic knowledge, problem solving, so forth, experience. And these are very typical.
That's very consistent with the 10 factors I think that we use here when we're rating it.
Yeah, so this fit in very nicely with with what you're already accustomed, it's not like so different from what you're currently, so it's just a little bit more delineation, you know, that's all, so it's very similar to what you have. And most municipalities use this type of a system. You know, I think the state uses like the Hay system, something like that, which is totally different, and, but we have this type of system that you all use. And then the benefits that we looked at, and this was just for information, we're not changing any benefits, we're not recommending any benefits. You know, it's just informational, health insurance, and then, you know, do you have longevity program and, you know, vacation days and things like that. So it was just some limited questions. It was what we call a limited survey. And we also had some quantifiable Northeast benefits report that we're sharing with you. You know, just some general information that you would find helpful for healthcare coverage, paid time off, benefits offered, and that sort of thing for government entities. And then we have in the report just some statewide what's going on with movement and the pay ranges and that sort of thing. But the final thing that we have is that we did a total comp for the fire service. And so we have firefighter with EMT, and firefighter paramedic. We didn't do the on-call, you know. So, and we looked at total comp. So the base pay has pay, you know, associate's degree pay, holiday pay, longevity, 25 years, clothing and cleaning, and then what the total cost would be, and, you know, and that sort of thing. So how it would, you know, compare to you know, firefighter, EMT. You have a lot of those positions and a lot of firefighter, paramedic. Do you have just plain firefighter? I don't know.
We do.
You do, yeah, so you have that, yeah. So, more and more, you know, most communities have firefighter with EMT, you know, so we have that. And we, you know, this was just a sampling, you know, it was not, you can go a little crazy with some of this, so we wanted to just give you a general overview. But, you know, it seems to be, you know, overall, you seem to be in sync with the market, you know, just a little bit of adjustment, you know, is needed, you know, for the town. And certainly if anybody falls below the minimum of the range, you want to bring them up to the minimum as soon as you can. And when placing people within the range, they should be placed on the closest, you know, they should be placed on their rate that they're currently making within the range. So don't, you know, if the range starts at 25, you know, don't, and they're currently making 26, don't put them at 25, they should go to 26, yeah. And you know, if you implement this for, it's 25 data, fiscal 25 data, so if you implement it for 26, you should add some type of a COLA to it. And whatever your policy is on that. So it's all over the place with communities. Some communities give an annual COLA, some give what's called a wage adjustment, and they include it with the performance movement. So whatever your policy is on that, and it's not up to us to determine that. You know, so you had something already really good to work off of, so it was refreshing, and it was not that difficult to kind of come up with a newer version of what you have. And like I said, the rating system, I think it's a better system. It's a little bit more delineated, and it will be easy for you, and we're going to computerize all the ratings for you so you can easily rate a job. So if you need to rate it, you know, so you don't have to do it manually or anything like that. So and if you don't want to use our rating system and you want to go back to yours, it's very applicable to this, so it wouldn't be a problem, you know. So whichever one you want to use, you have that choice. So that's just an overview. I mean, it was a very fast study. We had limited months, and it's just this group of positions, and if you want to ask any questions on this, at this point, I know you just got the report. It is still a draft, and I expect that there might be some changes or some edits, so maybe, maybe not, but that's why I labeled it draft. So it's not to be considered a final, And this is our recommendation, so it's not, it's just our recommendation, so you may want to tweak it.
Well, that's exactly what our assumption was walking in, that you would look and look comprehensively at how we compare and contrast
Yes,
to those communities of similar size and type around us.
yes,
And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like what you found is that while there may be some tweaking required, we're in relatively good shape,
yes,
that we seem to be, if not market specific, at least market adjacent to, with most of these positions, and to the extent that some of them may require a little bit of further discussion and decision-making, that we're in pretty good shape.
yeah. You could always tell, like, the organizations that have, when they have a board or they have an HR department, one or the other, that, and they regularly review these, you could always tell, that things have been well maintained over the years. So this is just the next step on top of something that was already in best practices anyway. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yes.
You all set?
Mm.
Sandy?
Yes.
Let's,
Kudos to HR people.
Yes.
Thank you.
it's a collaborative effort.
Yes.
I was gonna say
Yes.
thanks to the board as well
Yeah,
for supporting
yes.
the initiative.
Yes.
Let's open it up to Q&A, thoughts, observations, questions, please. Feel free.
I appreciate the clarity of the report. Having never looked at something like this before, it was really easy to kind of go through today, so thank you very much for that. Do you have an ETA on when we might be able to get that new assessment tool?
The rating system?
The rating system, rather, yes.
Oh, I can have that. Doing some traveling this week, but within a week I can have that to you.
Perfect,
certainly.
thank you.
Yes, yes. I didn't already give it, no, I don't
No,
think so.
I don't
Yeah.
have it. I mean,
I
that
have
was the biggest focus that I saw, which was, if the recommendation is to morph to a different classification schedule and then also change to the schedule that you provided for all the positions. Just
Yeah.
how do we do that? And you're answering
Sure.
it by giving us the tools to do it.
Yeah, I'll try my best to get it to you this week.
Mhm.
And you'll also have a web portal, for all the study documents and all the individual ratings and everything. So it's sort of like an archive, and you could take what you want from it and put it on your own. So.
Sandy, I have a question.
Sure.
So on your rating system, and I know we had a brief conversation about
Yes.
this, I didn't see any .1, .2, .3 like we have. So we have like say for example, a 16.1, a 16.2, a 16.3. Yours is just by grade. Could you speak to that? Because I explained
Yeah.
why we do that.
Yeah, explain that again to me, why you did it. I remember I didn't like it, but.
Here's your answer. Here's your answer.
So it's a subjective component. That's what she
Right,
said.
it's
She said
very
it's a subjective component. So
Yep.
if we're filling a position that is rated as 16, a 1 indicates that there is a plethora of people that could apply for the job. A
Oh.
2 means that the job requires a little bit more specific training. A 3 means that it's very specific and that the pool of candidates would be limited. And you said that that's a very subjective thing.
Yeah,
So I
that-
noticed that you don't have that on your rating system.
No, we don't have it, that's subjective, and that's not the purpose of you classify a job based on the position, not how, like the knowledge, abilities, skills, experience, supervision, not not because of how difficult it is to fill the job. So, we don't get into that, I don't think it's appropriate. Yeah, and it could cause a pay equity issue too, because you know, how do you determine what's, you know, and that can vary from year to year. I mean, you may have a year where there's, you just like, I know right now it's really hard to find a town accountant, but who knows, maybe, you know, in 5 years that won't be the case, and all these people coming from the federal government might be available to work, you know, as town
Yeah.
accountants. So, you know, that, so you never, so you just don't know, so it's a little bit subjective, yeah, and it's not necessary, you know, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that's not a major component of our decision-making, but it's just something we've grown accustomed to over the years, especially as it relates to market conditions. And granted, it is subjective, but again, it's not something that we hang our hats on whenever we look at these roles, so.
With your 5 categories, I'm sorry. go
I'll
ahead.
squeeze in.
It's okay.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, just your 5 categories and 14 classifications, the idea of our point 1, point 2, point 3 perhaps has more to do with the fact that a lot of the positions in this very small township are a bit hybrid. The job description by title is less important than the job description, if that makes any sense. The title doesn't tell the story.
Oh, the title, yes,
We wear a lot of hats.
yes. But
Said it better than I.
that's where the rating would come in, and a
Yeah.
job might rate higher because of that. But that has to do with the job, not so much with how difficult it is or not to recruit.
Understood.
Yeah.
I had a quick, I'm sorry.
No, it's just, I'm done. I don't,
Okay.
Jump in there, Tony.
You struggle, Tony.
Tony, why don't you share a question?
Gee, okay. No, I have I had a question on page 29 of this, on it lists the firefighters, and on top says municipalities, and Newbury, it's maximum base is none. That means there was no maximum base of salary, but then when you go down the bottom, Newbury firefighter, then they have average, median, and then 75th.
Yeah, I think,
Percentile.
yeah, we just didn't have that information to,
Oh,
this was the last thing we got, was the fire service, so I'll just need to plug in those.
oh, okay.
Okay, I didn't get it, and I just want to make sure, I need to verify that with, yeah, I can.
you have it for the
Yeah.
firefighter
And there
with
may
EMT.
there may be a couple more communities that we might want to add, and we had a hard time getting data for this group. I don't know, Tracy, if you have any
Right.
information you can share with
I
us.
might have some from Merrimack.
Oh, that would be
Yeah.
good, yeah. I think we want to add a little bit too, and so, yeah, I apologize, we got to add that in for Newbury.
That brings up a question I had earliest, when you outlined all of the townships you went to. What's their motivation to reply?
They'll get a copy of the results, they'll get all the
Okay.
data. I've already had, West Newbury has asked me a million times, and I've already said, I have to wait until I present it to you, and I have, so now I will share the, because it's technically public, yeah, so I'll share the data with them, but I usually like to give it to the client first, and then give it to all
That's
the other.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and if they're engaged in negotiations, this kind of data is very, very valuable.
Oh, it's
And it's
very-
nice to get it from an external source versus the people
Yes.
sitting at the table.
yeah, so we get a lot of responses for that reason, and it's a lot of work, and, you know, they can't do it, so they're very willing to fill out the survey, and they get the data. And hopefully then they hire us, but, you know, maybe they do, maybe they don't, so, anyway,
Page 20 through 23,
20 through 23, yeah.
can you take the last 3 columns in each of those pages and explain the mathematics and the indicators? What are you telling us?
Sure, so, for a position, you, look at, okay, first you get the title, then you have the Newbury's data, you have the comp points, that means the number of, data points means the number of matches of data. So that means for assessor's clerk, we had 7 minimum and 9 maximum data points. Then we have the average of of the 7 and the 9 is the average. And then the 65th percentile, so that means 35% pay more, and then the 75th percent of market means 25% pay more. And then we have percent high or low of the average, you know, and the 65th and the, now, don't be alarmed by some of these percentiles are high, it's a variance, so, you know, technically if it's 10 or 15% up, high or low, it's usually considered average, because it's a variance. So if it says that it's like 40% low, it doesn't mean, you know, that you add 40%. So what this is telling me is that your pay scale is good at the maximum, but the entries are low. So we probably made that adjustment, but you know, the maximums were not that far off. So I'm assuming that most of your people probably fall within the range, but we did want to bring up the minimums to make sure that you can hire at the appropriate rates. And so we typically match the maximums and work backwards. So for this study, we used the average. I think it would have been really expensive if we used the 75th percentile or the 65th. So we used the average. So, but it's interesting because in almost every case, the entry is low, but the maximum is in some cases the maximum is high actually. You know, so that's why I say you pretty much are okay. You know, I would be more worried if you're you know, so what you want to do for hiring purposes, you need to have a more realistic, you know, entry, you know. But there does seem to be enough room for growth, so.
Tracy, can I ask you about that? So in your recent experience looking at the recruiting, both the recruiting process and the retention process, does what Sandy just say bear out to you that, you know, if you had to choose one area where we may need to do some work here, it's more the ability to attract folks as opposed to keep folks who are veterans in the organization?
Yeah, I would, and that was one of my observations too, because Sandy was looking at 2025 data, and if you recall, 2024 and 2025 is when we had a significant
Right.
amount of turnover,
Right.
and a lot of the new hires, I think you may remember me bringing the positions to you for reclassifying them because they were so low
Right.
that I couldn't be competitive at all. So even when we upgraded those wages to the 2025 levels
Right.
that she was working with, there's still a statement
delta
here that
there,
says
yeah.
we've fallen slightly below market.
Yeah.
So even with those adjustments, we're still a little bit below.
And Sandy, would you say that's in part a function of the fact that we've been blessed with many long-term employees here, even at the lower ends, if you will, of the scale, and that may be one of the reasons why we perhaps haven't kept up as we should have on the lower end,
Yeah,
being able to make adjustments?
that is sort of a phenomenon that happens in municipal government, I think. You
It's a
see
blessing
that.
while people are here, it's a curse when you have to
When they
replace them.
leave.
When they leave, it's a curse,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so there were, so you'll see that there were some that, you know, the minimums jumped up, you know, in the, but if somebody's been here a long time, they're gonna fall within the range and near the higher end. So it's really the ones that fall below the minimum, you know, that are gonna be the,
And the function of hiring from within as well.
Yes.
And it's just,
Yeah.
I would have to guess that's a large component for the town of Newbury. And the idea is to be able to find a replacement as somebody moves up the line or transfers from Department 1 to 2.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's turnover, it can, you know, you don't want turnover, a lot of turnover, you know. If you've had people here for a long time, that's a blessing, but it can be costly, you know,
Yeah.
turnover is very expensive, and when you add up all the things in terms of advertising, the training, you know, if they need to get certifications, if someone needs to fill in while that position is being recruited, you add everything up, it can be costly, so you want to try to eliminate that.
And management resources, taking the time necessary to get those people up to speed.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
training, yes,
Distraction, not a
Yeah.
distraction, but an obligation.
Onboarding.
yeah.
Onboarding.
The onboarding,
Oh my
yes,
God.
yeah.
I wonder, so when you were talking, I think, I've been doing, we've been reclassifying jobs as they've come up, either to be filled, or in some cases, when we look back and they haven't been re-rated in a very long time and the job has sort of grown. But Tracy, I'm wondering if some of the minimums are because when we upgrade the ranges, we've only over the last 15 years just been updating them by the COLA.
Right.
And not updating them by the market. And I
Right,
think that was
that's
one of the intentions of, 15 plus years have gone by and we haven't looked at a market adjustment. We've only been redoing those numbers based on what the COLA is that year. And so I think that attributes some of it to the minimum. Does that make?
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah.
would be, yeah, you want to update your salary schedule, if not every year, at least every other year with a COLA, So typically what we say, and again, everybody has their own policy, and but what we like to see happen, if it's affordable, is the whole salary schedule to be updated every year. And that has to do with the market, goods and services, and the CPI, or what surrounding towns might be giving. And then how people move from minimum to maximum has to do with the employee. Could be performance, could be longevity, could be a special skill or certification that they get, or something like that. And so you get two things happening. And compounded, it can be a lot of money, and I get that. So that's why some communities opt to just have a wage adjustment, and they don't do the whole salary schedule every year. And then within the adjustment, it includes the movement, it includes the COLA and performance. So there's no right or wrong, but whatever works for you. You haven't been doing it wrong, but
Right.
you did fall behind, yeah.
And not only did we only adjust for COLA, but there were a number of years where there was no COLA. So I recall
There's only
2000,
one since I've been here.
only one since you've been here, but I think there were 3 years in a row where there was no COLA
Okay.
adjustment at all before.
What do you attribute that to? Just pure bottom line?
I think so. It was before I got here, but I want to say 2008, 9, 10,
Oh, that
those
was a bit-
years.
oh, that was a
Yeah, it
bad time,
Rough
yeah.
times, yeah.
A lot has changed since then,
That's
oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
2008 is the year that we should never talk about again.
Right.
We should never,
Yeah.
no, never want to talk about that
Yeah.
year, that was a
That's
tough
the
year.
fear year.
Yeah.
And we also don't have movement within the range because we're lacking the performance evaluation component, so.
Another conversation for another day.
Okay, yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is it, Cindy, I know you touched on this in a couple of cases, is it fair to suggest that from both an hours work standpoint and a benefit standpoint, those are not significant factors in this? It seems like we're competitive as it relates to the benefits that we
Oh, the
offer
benefits
employees.
are
Yeah.
good, yeah.
And as I just briefly talked to Diane about earlier, the hours are the hours, there's not a huge variation from town to town, whether it's 35 hours a week or 37 hours a week.
It's either usually, town hall is usually 35 or 37 and a half,
Yeah.
typically.
Right.
You do have some that are 36.2, which is Andover,
Right.
but you do, but, and then public safety is usually 40 or 42, right? So
But,
that's,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we're not comparing ourselves
DPW is
to,
40, yeah.
a town
Yeah.
that has 30 hours a week versus 40 hours a week, significantly.
But if you're exempt, it doesn't, the hours
Correct.
don't matter, your salary is salary, right? Doesn't matter.
Right.
I was looking for one demographic element in the paper, and it wasn't there, or at least I didn't discover it. And that's a measure in each of the villages you listed of residents, of employees, inside the town or elsewhere.
You mean the population?
No, the actual, the list, the employee
The number of
dimension,
employees.
the demographics of employees for each of those villages. Do they live in those villages or come from elsewhere, and how far away?
Oh.
Commute.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
You
do
wanna know-
residents work for the town or do non-residents work for the town?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Well,
And,
you're
and,
get,
and where do we stand, being a rural community, on having the potential for providing that level of housing for young families to come and work in this village, as opposed to Boxford or West Newbury, which has more acreage, more
Well,
village.
none of these places have a residency requirement, so
Okay.
you
No,
you really, I
There's
don't.
one, we have one.
What?
Mhm.
Who, Newburyport?
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say our positions?
No, none of
None of
these
the towns
towns,
have a-
Oh.
it's not like a
Sorry.
city where cities have,
Sorry.
you know, residency requirements, so they can, you know, they can commute, you know, if they
I'm
can't.
aware of
Yeah.
that. You know, the idea would just be, it would be interesting to know what percentage of folks actually live in those villages and come to work as residents, not as visitors.
Yeah, that's you know, I don't know, we'd have to quantify that, but that's an
That's a whole
interesting
different
question.
subject, yeah.
That's like a whole, yeah, but, I know one thing, we recommend, we're affiliated with MRI and they do searches, and, we always recommend that there's no residency requirement.
That would be pretty limiting.
Yeah, oh, we just got rid of it, yeah, in our town, yeah, it is, but, you don't have to worry about that, but, you know, I know what you're saying, the young people, they don't, you know, it's not like our generation, we would drive, we would do whatever to get to work. The young people today, they don't want to drive far, you know, they just don't, so that's a whole other dilemma, you know,
I think
and,
intuitively, I would think that we are probably the norm in terms of the percentage of our employees that live within the boundaries of Newbury Byfield, Plum Island, versus, you know, surrounding towns, just as would be the case in Salisbury or Rowley or Georgetown. No way of quantifying that unless you really dig into all that data, but it just feels like, I'm just thinking about our population, the few I know.
yeah.
And, you know, we've got our share of folks that are in town and share of folks that are in surrounding communities.
And then you have call people, right? And where are they working? Okay, so I did a study in Carlisle, and they were saying like, well, all of our people work in Boston, so if we ring a bell for a call, you know, they're gonna come, they're not gonna come, right? So that's a whole other issue, right? Yeah.
Most of the advice that comes from our friends at the Mass Municipal Managers Association advises that you don't work in the town that you live in, or live in the town that you work in. They frown upon that.
As a manager?
Mhm.
Yeah, well, you know, I think
Police
this,
chiefs, managers.
Privacy.
I like that I don't have to,
Privacy.
there
but I
are
also
possi-
like that I don't have a pony in the game politically. You know, it
Exactly.
keeps me neutral,
Mhm.
and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong if you do live in the town, you know, but there is an inherent conflict when you think about it, because say you have a home and it has to be inspected, right? Or if you have a fire, or if you have a police matter, or, I mean,
Tax rate.
a tax, yeah. There is an, but then I guess the other side of it, it is nice for the people to see you in town too, but, you know, but I don't know, in a community like Newbury, how often do they see you anyway, you know, I don't,
Exactly.
you know, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the chief's point's well taken, it's independence.
Yeah, it's
Every
independence.
decision made is clean.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
One question, on the bottom of page 2, that last paragraph, the second half of the last paragraph caught my eye. As needed, follow-up calls were made to comparable communities. Sometimes it's difficult to find exact positions from other comparable communities. However, in general, if 70% of the duties and responsibilities are the same, then the position is a good match for market analysis purposes.
Yeah, that's
Agreed.
pretty, that's the standard.
In this work that you did you find that there were a few positions in Newbury that sat outside of that 70% match range that made it more difficult for you? Because we talked in the past about the fact that some of our folks wear multiple hats, perhaps more so than the norm in other communities, I don't know. I'm just wondering if that was a challenge for you, or if most of what you saw fit within that 70% plus category.
I think most fit within the 70%. I think most actually fit within. You know, the only one that I can think of that might have been accountant, assistant, finance director. It's kind of a combination.
And you bring it up on page 3 as well, wear many hats due to limited resources in a small town.
Yeah,
It is a unique quality.
yeah, I mean, but it wasn't so different that we needed to, you know,
Okay.
and if it was, we didn't include it, you know, if we felt that the job was not, you know, like the shellfish person is sometimes combined with something else, and, you know, there were some that, and, you know, and if, you could tell by the number too, I mean, if the salary just doesn't look right, you know, and,
Well, these 3 right here wear hats, different hats,
yeah,
all 3 of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you the emergency management director too?
And the harbor master.
And the harbor master, yeah. Yeah. But your primary role is, you know, public.
Depending on what's happening with the weather, but yes. You know, we're a coastal community, so emergency management takes up some
Yeah,
time depending on the season. But yeah, it all depends on what's going on, really.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was done.
On 16, 17, 18, I think I understand this, but just to double check, anytime a particular town only had one number that refers to the current rate of pay as opposed to a maximum amount, is that correct? So,
Yeah, like Boxford,
yeah, I'm looking at Boxford,
Yeah.
middle of 16, Boxford,
Georgetown.
admin assistant, 2750. That refers to the current
yeah, they,
compensation, not
yeah.
the max without a min.
yeah, they
So
just
that's an
have,
actual,
yeah,
yeah.
that's an actual, some of the towns reported the actual,
Yeah.
what that means is they're not implementing the range for whatever reason.
Yeah. Is it that they're just sharing the maximum, or they don't have a mid-max?
Well, some of these places I did a study, so I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, but I think it may, you know, sometimes, I mean, it was a long time ago, so sometimes what happens if they don't keep up with their pay plan, they may not be using
Right.
the ranges, so it might be misleading to give that, so then they report the actuals.
But when you, I guess what I'm asking is, when you request the data
Yes,
from X town, do you request it as a, could you please share the mid-max?
Yes.
You do, okay.
yes, yeah, we do. We actually ask for the minimum and the maximum,
Okay,
Yeah.
and then they choose to either comply with that or just give you what they,
what they
Okay.
feel, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
so.
got it.
That's too bad, because that gives you some outliers.
Yeah.
It screws up the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, well, it all averages out, but we have enough communities.
Yeah.
Most of, I was gonna say, most of them do comply.
Mm.
Yeah. And usually the actuals will be a little bit higher, I think, than. Yeah, you know, I'm surprised that Wenham, I don't know about Groveland, but Wenham and Georgetown, I'm surprised, but. You know, these are all little places, and, you know, they sometimes will work within the context of, you'd be surprised too, a lot of these little places have so many contract employees, which I'm surprised, because I always thought there was only, according to state law, certain positions that you could have contract, but I think they've expanded that now, I don't know.
What would an example of that be? Sorry.
Well, you know, you see, every now and then you see things like library director might be a contract, or
Inspectors.
Oh, okay.
inspectors, yeah. I mean, you never used to see that, it used to be police chief, fire chief, DPW director, and that was it. Now you see town
Oh, okay.
accountant and,
Well, the law has changed though.
the modernization law maybe
Yeah,
has
treasurer
changed.
collector and town accountant.
Can be, yeah, that's what it is.
I saw a lot of stipends listed there. In other words, no numbers were given, just stipend.
Where do you see that?
A few places.
What page you on?
Well, I'm just recalling my reading. Here it is. This is on page 16,
Yeah,
on the bottom, electrical inspector, for example.
oh, yeah,
Stipend.
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's to tell you that that's what it is, that
Right.
they get a stipend. I don't particularly like that, but that's their policy, I mean,
So would that mean it's somebody else's job and then somebody else holds a different job and then that employee gets a stipend for also doing that?
No, so in the case, to the inspectors, so a stipend would be comparable to the word salary. So they're getting a stipend for performing, right? We have 2 inspectors right now that receive a stipend, which is an annual amount that they'd receive. It's more or less a salary, but they would receive it monthly for certain duties and responsibilities.
they can be called as many times as you need them, you know,
Okay.
and they just,
But
they
they're not
work.
on the payroll of the town of Newbury.
No, they are.
They
They
are.
are.
They are,
Why
yes.
distinguish stipend versus salary?
Because they're available hours of work,
Okay,
and for that hours of work, on a monthly basis, they receive a stipend or a salary.
Yeah, it's almost like being a contract, you know, like, in a way, because there's no hours, you know, a lot of these inspectors have other jobs, they might have their own business or whatever, and they do this on the side, and they say, okay, I'll do it for X number, you know, and it's not uncommon, you know, it's, and then some places they give fees, like, I've seen where in some inspectors, they get a percentage of the fees, and I've seen all kinds of things in the little towns, but,
interesting.
you know, but sometimes you can't find anybody, you know, so you have to give. I don't particularly like stipends, to be honest with you, because especially when they get to be big stipends, because then you run into the problem with FLSA and are you following the rules with that? So when they get big, I get a little nervous, but
Well,
it
it
is
looks
what
like
it
it's
is,
just-
you know. I'm not saying to take it away from your inspector or anything, no.
It's just specific to those 2 roles, and it's
Yeah.
only 2 towns
Yeah,
that do it, so
yeah.
we are not among them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Standards Act is Commonwealth of Mass. Is that what you're talking about, the FLSA?
Fair Labor Standards Act.
Yeah, that is the Commonwealth, yeah.
It's actually a federal law.
Is it federal?
It's federal.
Okay. All right.
The Labor Standards Act, the FLA.
Yes.
But overall, I mean, reading the report and the recommendations and the findings, it was, I mean, I felt pretty good about the work that
Yeah,
is being done here in Newbury. We weren't that far off.
no,
No.
it's a wonderful accounting of success. Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a little work to do,
Sure.
but I would agree with that. I felt good reading through it, and certainly hearing you know, verbalize the fact that generally speaking, especially at the upper ends, we're in, again, there could be some tweaking necessary, but generally speaking, we're consistent with market rates. Perhaps at the lower end of our market is where we need to do more adjusting to be able to attract the best and the brightest. But on balance,
Yeah.
you know, in good shape.
Yeah,
Very good shape.
the advantage that municipal government has is, you know, you give great benefits. I mean, and that's really a, you know, I
We have
think
to offer, yeah.
you have a lot to offer, a pension plan and everything, you know, that. So those are nice benefits that a lot of people in the private sector don't. Of course, they get other things, they get profit sharing and bonuses and different things. They get-
Remote work, yeah.
Yeah.
They used to get defined benefit pension plans.
Yes,
That died on the vine.
yeah,
So would you anticipate us moving to that new,
the new ratings, and I could give you some training on it.
is
Yeah.
that something that we're all open to, is just shifting to that different rating factor, or do we want to look at it as a?
I'm open to
review it?
looking at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted, it's copywritten, so it can't be changed, so either take it or you don't.
Take it or leave it, huh?
Right. I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah, I think certainly as a group, we
think,
would appreciate being able to review it and compare and contrast it to what is in
Yeah,
place, and
sure.
thank you for that.
And the part that sticks out to me is when you say that subjectivity of the point system that we have, you know, could be perceived as something that's not fair or equitable.
Right,
That, you know what I mean, like that rang with me as a
Mhm.
reason why we may wanna look at least not having that point system, cause we don't
Yeah.
wanna have anything that even has the appearance of not being fair or equitable.
Well, I think whether it's the 10 factors that we use or the
Mhm.
14 factors that Sandy recommends, I think most of that gets washed out anyways. You know, when we're looking at
Yeah,
certifications and we're looking at the degree of complexity and,
Mhm.
you know, those all tend to be factors when we're looking at the marketplace, the
Mhm.
candidate pool. And so, yeah, perhaps the 1, 2, and 3 isn't as necessary as we've been thinking, that, you know, we're almost there anyways, you know,
Right,
before we get to that end, so.
Sandy, what else would you need from us to finalize the report, is there anything you need,
Um,
or?
if there's any changes that you want me to make, Tracy, if you happen to have any fire department information that you could send me, you said you had Merrimack, that would
I
be
think I have
helpful.
Merrimack and West Newbury.
Oh, that would
if
be,
I'm not mistaken.
that would be great if you could give me those too, so we can plug it in. And then, of course, I would need your numbers for the firefighter, where is it?
I think we sent the,
29,
But
page 29.
yeah, I'm sure we have that information.
I think so.
the
Yeah.
collective bargaining agreement, I think there
Yeah,
were
you have that
five
one.
different pages.
Okay, I'm sure I have that, we probably just.
If you don't, let me know, and I
Okay.
can get it to you right away.
Yeah, so that's all I need, you know, anything that, you want striked from the report or whatever, yeah, so that, because I know it's the first time for you to look at it, so I know you need to digest it a little bit. So,
all right.
all right, well, thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you,
much.
Sandy.
So much.
Sandy.
Oh, you're welcome, thanks.
Yeah, Cindy, it's been wonderful, thank you so much.
It's always nice to come
Appreciate
here,
your
it's so
attention
nice
to
to see
detail
you.
here.
I know, I'm glad
So
I got to
nice.
connect.
Yes, thank you. Diana's been so helpful too, always. So, anyway, thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Hello, guys.
I know he's actually downstairs.
Oh, is he?
He's my driver. All right, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
We'll be back in touch soon.
Yes, all right, bye-bye.
You ever met her husband?
No,
General thoughts?
I think it's simple and comprehensive, you know, like,
What we were looking
wasn't
for.
simple to do, but it reads easy, I like that.
I think it's reassuring
Yeah,
that the turnover, like we've talked about, you know, isn't just directly related to, you know, only compensation, it's been for so many different reasons. But, and I also feel like after 15 years of being on this board, having an update to the classification, I mean, it's not far off, but, and then and then the ranges, you know, having those updated as well, gives us kind of like another jumping off point for the next, you know, 3, 5, however many years in the future,
Yeah.
For the next group.
for the next group.
It's also fair to assume that, you know, if and when we make adjustments to bring us up to full competitive adherence with the market, whether it's at the bottom, middle, or the top, you know, there are gonna be those one-offs. We talk about one-offs all the time. There are gonna be those times when a surrounding town is in desperate need, and they'll break the bank
Right.
to poach one of our best and brightest. That's real life, you know, not sure there's anything we can do about that. But I think if you look at the statistical averages, we're gonna be in pretty good shape.
Yep.
And that should hold us in good stead, you know, going forward, whether it's on the recruiting end or the retention end. So, Tracy, your thoughts?
I echo just exactly what you said. I mean, I feel much more comfortable that we're in the ranges that we should be for the most part. I think probably we did, with the COVID-induced retirements, if you want to call them that, some of the regular retirements, we were that community that was probably looking to what we would consider break the bank to attract people, but it was more of a function of the fact that we were so low because people had been in those roles for 20 years, 25 years.
Right.
So understanding that it was more a resultant from that than being not competitive makes me feel much better.
Right. And again, I know this is not a budget conversation, that's not our jurisdiction, but the last sentence on page 7 is what hit home for me. Most positions fall within the ranges provided, so the total cost impact is limited for implementation. So it's important for
Right.
residents to hear, it's important for select board to hear, it's important for you to
Absolutely.
appreciate, certainly, that, you know, this is not an arm and a leg to make whatever tweaks or slight adjustments we may need. And I'm sure that that'll go over well with the town.
I think it works for both ends of the spectrum, you know, that the end of, you know, we're paying people way too much, or the people who are saying we're not paying nearly enough, like to see that we're falling within the range.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think, and that there's data to prove that, I think,
Right.
is very helpful no matter where you stand on kind of the spectrum.
Right, right. I remember talking to Tracy a few months ago on a different subject, we were talking about percentages of operating budget that fall within, you know, this category of employees, and we're in good shape.
And we were
Right,
right.
we
where
were right,
needed to be.
we were right where the, you know, the percentage of the operating budget that relates to compensation was right where it should be.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
again, another indicator that, you know, some tweaks are necessary, but nothing needs
Overall,
to be
we're in
blown
good
up,
shape.
right? It's great.
Great.
Other thoughts, questions?
She did a great job, Sandy.
Yeah, this is nice work.
Yeah,
Great
it
job.
was,
Well done.
it was an easy read,
Really,
and
it was.
in the best poetic tradition.
Yeah.
Easy read is a product of hard writing. She did a good job.
You're here.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, why don't we quickly run through our standard agenda? I don't think there's much here this week, so, no meeting minutes as yet from January, we'll get those shortly. Employee issues, chief, anything to report on your end?
Nothing to report on my end.
Diane, Tracy, anything we need to know? No? Employee issues, personnel actions and job vacancies? I know I've found a few things recently that.
We have 3 new call firefighters. We have, we had 1 resignation of a dispatcher, back in, the end of January, so I think that was after our last meeting. Do you wanna talk about that one? He moved for opportunity to move into a,
Yeah, that was, he went to a one-off department where there was additional money, but there was also opportunity for upward movement for him that we don't offer. So he left with with the town in good standing in his mind, but
Yep.
to better himself.
We also had one full-time firefighter resign, that happened on the 25th, which again, I think was after the last meeting. And I think that position is open. And then we have, our shellfish constable has increased his hours from 18 to, or effective Monday, effective, yes, today.
Today.
From 18 to 21 hours a week. And we also have a new planning intern that's working to assist on a special project.
I will be, it's coming up on the season where I will be looking for more harbor master helpers. We have two, I believe we have two that are returning. We really could use more teens, and they're just at the landing Monday, 7 days a week to help people get their boats in and out and make sure people have their proper permits and things like that. So that will be being posted soon.
Is it hiring those assistants, has that been a challenge in the past, or is it a good pool?
Yeah, no, it's challenging. Yeah, it's challenging to
Do they
find.
need boating experience?
I mean, you should. You have to be very careful. You have to be aware of current and tides, because right there at the landing, it can be a little bit tricky. We usually have an assistant harbor master at least around to assist with that, but it's just, I think, finding teenage workers right now can be hard.
Are they actually interns, just learning the craft?
No, it's a paid position, but it's,
Do you have an intern program that gets them ready for the paid position? In other words, just reaching out to all the local schools and say, how would you like to come to a 2-week exercise and observe and consider employment next summer? Or are these kids that are still full-time in school?
they're usually, yeah, it's a summer job, yeah.
I mean, I always think about growing up as a WSI instructor and the internships for teaching swimming as opposed to just lifeguarding. And they brought us in for 2 weeks for acclimation, and then you volunteered downstream to be full-time paid WSI.
Yeah.
It just might be a manner of getting kids to reflect on, hey, there's a position next year if I take this internship.
Well, it's really not that difficult. There's really not much to intern, so if they were available for an internship, I would hire them.
There you go. Well, it's
How about the American Yacht Club? Calling them to see if they have families that have children that might be interested. I know they have a sailing class or a sailing club. They might also have families that have kids that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to have a little bit of strength, to be able to help the boats coming in and out, but.
the day students at Governors and the Triton kids. How do you reach out to those two communities?
We do share the information with them
Okay.
when it comes in,
Right.
so. But I'll add the yacht club to it as well.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Might be a good
Do
resource.
they have to work with like cranes and things like that?
Nothing,
Oh,
they're
these
sitting in a
small
chair.
boats. Oh,
They're 17-year-olds sitting in a chair, you know what I mean,
Smart
helping
maintenance.
people get their boats in and out. If you go out with, just yourself, they're the other set of hands to help get you in and out.
so
Yeah.
these aren't big boats.
No,
yachts and
no.
Not on the Parker River.
Not on the
No.
Parker River, no.
These are little clamor boats.
Yeah,
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 climbing
the boats you're
boats.
backing up down the ramp and then getting it off your ramp into the water and
Okay.
I
tethering it until you can park your truck and come back down for it.
Something less than an 18-inch draft,
Yeah.
probably. So, okay, thank you for that, Chief.
Yeah,
And Tracy and Diane, thank you. No workplace issues, ethics, discrimination issues that I'm aware of?
No.
Again, thank you. Safety issues, Chief, anything to report there?
no,
Town hall, all good? Okay, no other business to attend to today?
no.
We'll have the minutes from the January meeting to attend to in our next meeting, which, by the way, this is a long month, so unless anyone objects, I would suggest we meet in 4 weeks, which would be the 31st of March. That's our typical cycle, every 4 weeks. Does that work for folks?
It's usually the fourth Monday. which would be the 24th.
Yeah, I just
But
thought we'd space
because-
it out a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we're here
Yep.
today, so.
So 31 reaches out another week.
So, let's put on the calendars for Monday, March 31st at 4 PM. Thank you all for that. Any other discussion? Tracy, anything from you?
No.
Good? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion?
No.
We are adjourned.